Is it live?
I think give it a second.
Alright, because nobody's joining right now. You just call him.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, we're live.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our 7th episode of Z.I.P Talks today. We are with Team 7519 Roarbots, and we'll be talking about their robot optimization for states. My name is Mo Hill, and I'm the outreach lead on Team Z.I.P Ties.
Hi, my name is Anoop, and I'm the CAD mechanical lead.
Hi, my name is Rishabh. I work in the outreach as well as the scouting departments.
My name is Ethan. I'm the team captain and software lead.
My name is Matthew, and I'm one of the main drivers.
My name is Brooke, and I'm also a driver, and I also work on hardware.
Mo, I just want to let you know the chat is disabled.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The people, how they voice their opinions.
Yeah.
Oh, hello.
I don't know if I can fix that now, but...
Nah.
You might be able to. I think you can probably fix it midstream. I don't know how, but I can.
Anoop, if you want to start asking questions.
Okay, yeah. So, my first question. Yeah, Robots, you've been very consistent with your design ever since League Meet 1. So, do you plan on making any big design changes for states?
I don't think you'll be able to tell a huge difference just by looking at it. There are going to be a lot of changes and very large changes, but in terms of hardware, we're kind of set on that. The only big thing is we might be replacing motors for our turret, but in terms of everything, it's gonna be mostly software.
Okay. That's cool.
So, so software-wise, what are your plans? Are you guys planning on doing something with odometry or just optimizing your auto to try and get another cycle?
So a couple things we want to do. We're making some PID controllers right now because we noticed that we are pitifully out-cycled by a lot of teams. So we really need to kind of step that up. And so we figured having a PID controller would be really, really good for cycling and auto and just making sure that our turret and lifter are moving as fast as possible and as accurately as possible. And in terms of auto, we'll see where that gets us because as of right now, we haven't worked on auto. We've just been working on the PID controllers in software. And so once those are finished, we can tell how many cones we'll be able to get in auto. Currently, we have no idea.
Yeah, so another thing I wanted to ask is obviously as Anoop was saying, you guys have been consistent since the very beginning. I know probably for most of your autos, the only reason why you might have missed a cone is if a robot just ran into you. So when you guys build your robot and start designing it from the beginning of the season, is this something you try and target? Your robot can be easily optimized and can easily be redesigned?
I mean, not necessarily, but sort of at the same time. In the beginning of the year, what we were really thinking to do was more on making a smaller scale robot as compared to previous years because of the difference in layout of the field. As in this year, you have to have a lot more you have to be able to weave through a lot smaller areas. So we were more focusing on making a more compact robot rather than creating trying to build for the future optimization.
I kind of want to comment on the thing you said about how we only missed a cone once if a robot ran into us. There were actually a couple times at the league meet you can see where our software kind of fell short, and there was a really good reason for it. So the junctions that we're detecting, right? Because we're using OpenCV to detect the junctions that we line up with them. They're yellow. And it just so happens that Super 7's shirts also happen to be yellow. And we're using the width of the yellow to determine how close we are to a pole. So I think you see where I'm going with this. Because if you're closer, you need to, because the width is huge, you need to back off a little bit, you're too close. Well, it's seeing this enormous yellow blob And it's like, oh crap, we need to, we're way too close. We got to get away. So anytime we would go against Z.I.P Ties, you can actually watch the stream. The autonomous messed up because we would. And it's not the Super 7. Nothing Super 7 did. We need to fix that. But it was anytime we went against Super 7, our autonomous just didn't score because we couldn't tell the difference between their shirts and the junctions.
Yeah. This had also happened when we were trying to get one of the blue cones. Barry, who was the commentator, he wore an all blue suit right in front of the blue stack. So as we're trying to find it, he's moving. So the robot just sees, ooh, blue, and it went to him as he was moving. So that caused us to miss a couple of the cones from the cone stack.
Or when we were testing our autonomous, like in our practice room, we have like the stack of like the yellow bricks from one of the previous
Skystone.
Yeah, Skystone. And like we were like keep wondering like why is like the one corner not working? And it was because like it was like right in the view of the stack of the bricks. And so like every time we would think like the same reason that we were too like close and like keep backing up.
Yeah, vision is really difficult to work with. And so it's been an experience, you know. OpenCV,
it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. We enjoyed staying till midnight and not accomplishing much.
So, do y'all have like ideas on how you're gonna fix that?
Yeah, just chop off some of the images. Like right now, we're not looking at. I don't remember what it was. We made this change a long time ago. We're looking at, I think, just the top of the image now.
Yeah. We blacked out the bottom part, so
yeah,
only view the top.
Yeah, but we might have to chop off like
even more.
You know, this part and this part, so we're only seeing the part in between. So that way we're not, you know, getting zip ties in the frame or Barry or whatever. It's it's difficult because there are a lot of unknown factors, but I think for the most part it's pretty fixable. It's not going to be a huge deal, hopefully.
Okay, that's cool. So I had another question. Are y'all going to be prioritizing speed or efficiency and consistency for like autonomous?
We're kind of doing both. We're not really right now. We're just trying to. We're mainly trying to get consistency and then speed after we get the consistent. Like let's say we get 3 cones every single time, then we'll try to speed it up to 4 and then get the consistency off that. So it's kind of consistency, and then once we get that down, we go to speed, and then back to consistency, and then speed until we get all the cones, or 4 or 3 or however many we can get.
And what we're also trying to do is we're trying to like cut down on time of stuff that we don't necessarily need to do. So like this is for teleop, not autonomous, but we're like cutting down the amount of buttons that needs to be pressed to do a single action.
Okay.
And so like for consistency, I think we do prioritize consistency a lot, especially with the parking, because parking is 20 points versus, one more cone on the high junction, which is it's 10 it's like 10 overall points, 5 autonomous points, but you want the overall points. But getting one more cone versus parking, you're going to want to park because it's 20 points. So that's where you want to like find your consistency. You can actually see it in it was our very first match of the day at League Champs. We did actually end up scoring 4 cones on the stack, but we just barely parked. I mean, it was questionable. Yeah, like even the commentator was like surprised. He was like, "Oh, they're gonna count that? Okay, because we're just making things up now." So we decided, hey, let's chill. We proved that we can do it, but let's go for 3, and then if we have to be parked for 5 seconds, we're parked for 5 seconds. Who cares? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I would say something with our robot recently is it's just been like we've been trying to get in as many cones as we can and the parking. Like I think there's been moments where we were like, okay, we got the 4 cone with the park with some time left, we can go for 5 with the park. Has there been any times like not just this season but last season? I know that you guys won the state championship, which is congratulations. But were there any times where at states like you're like, okay, this part that we did like minorly change, it stopped working? Like, how did you guys like sort of counter that, and how did you guys sort of like overcome that difficulty?
I don't like things that weren't working from states.
yeah, like at the state competition, let's just say a part of your arm broke or one of your parts of your
Well, well, something actually did break the night before the competition. So if you watch, because I think the stream is still up on the RoboVision on Demand YouTube channel, you can see that our like the box we use to store the freight, it's not very on brand with the Roarbots because we're very black and orange, right? But for some reason we have this blue box. Well, that's because the night before we were scrimmaging with another team, we picked up some freight, and all of a sudden it just disintegrated. Like our box literally, like it just
like the CAD just broke.
We don't know what happened. Like nothing abnormal happened. It just disintegrated and it stopped. And so our mentors were like, "Crap, we're an hour and a half away from the nearest 3D printer
that we can use.
That we could use." Yeah. So one of them was just like, "Hey, I'll call my son. I'll have him put the CAD, in the 3D printer. We'll 3D print another piece. We'll slap it on the day before, and we'll see what happens." And that is something that just it was working at the competition, but the night before was a panic attack. That was it wasn't a very fun night.
You should have seen his face.
Yeah,
your jaw just like
hit the floor, man. Yeah.
So like because of that, like going on, like especially when you went to Worlds and like now this season, have you guys been able to like implement that problem? Like have you guys been able to like think, oh, we had this problem last time, now we aren't gonna do this anymore, and like you guys approach like another strategy, like probably not like using as many 3D printed parts or using a different type of material? Was there anything that you guys did differently now?
We tend to make backups stuff.
Yeah.
Print duplicates.
Yeah.
If there is a 3D printed part, I guarantee you we have at least one more in that room right over. You can't see it in our robotics room. Yeah. There's at least one more in there.
Like there's so many 3D parts in that room. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was not taking chances.
Yeah, that was especially problem for us. Like I think it was Leave 4. Like our wires got messed up in the robot, and it broke 2 of our claws in 2 out of our 6 matches. And thank God we had like 5 backup claws.
Yeah, I remember that. It was like stupid. I remember him saying, "Was like, dude, they're Z.I.P Ties. They're gonna come back from that." And like the next,
fixed it in like seconds.
Yeah. It was like the next, like we just saw your claw just get ripped off of the robot, and then like the next match, y'all acted like nothing happened. It was
very impressive.
You fixed it in like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I would not be able to do that, dog. I'm not gonna lie to you. that would freak me out.
The 8 minutes you have in between states matches, they could build another robot.
Yeah, I was gonna say yeah. Maybe.
All right, robot broke. No worries, we'll build another one.
Like who needs a 24-hour challenge, not 8 minutes?
Yeah. I had a quick question. So we know that you guys made it to Worlds last season. So what was your strategy of like redesigning a robot? Because like most teams, us included, like right before a big competition, we decided to make like big changes. What was your strategy going into Worlds?
A lot of it was reviewing the footage from the state competition, and then just seeing, hey, what are areas we could improve in, and looking at some of the other robot designs and seeing what are other teams using that are making them successful. And something we noticed was, hey, a lot of these teams have this little turret thing, so that way they don't have to move their robot; they can just move their arm. And so we actually got a. It wasn't even a motor; it was a servo. We controlled our entire arm with a servo, which it was awful. Servos are not great for moving big things. Don't ever use them for that.
Yeah, so we changed it to motors.
This year we're using 2 motors instead of a singular servo. Yeah, I mean it worked. It was good. It just we had to like order a special servo that cost like $170, And when you turned on the robot, it would make these weird noises.
Yeah, like beeping.
It sounded like it was.
sounds like a.
It sounded like a bomb, but it actually sounded like a time bomb, and it scared me, especially like I was afraid that the robot was going to turn on. Like we had to fly to Houston. I was afraid the robot was going to turn on, and all of a sudden you would hear this like ticking noise in our little like robot case, and they're going to be like, "Hey, you guys can't get on the plane. Y'all can't go."
Or the queuing tables at Worlds, like one of like the helpers over there was like, "Is that supposed to happen? Like, why is it beeping?"
Yeah.
She's like so
Zach had said something
concerned.
at the airport.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think like Anoop can especially speak about this, but we have been like you may have seen our intake arm. We have been through so many iterations with it of going between motor and servos just to control it, either for speed or just making it lighter. But yeah, like I think Anoop can talk a little bit more about that.
Talking about our
Yeah, sure. So like one of the problems we have is our servos are kind of slow. Our entire intake arm is kind of heavy. So for what we're trying to change is implementing like the servo power module, because we've heard from other people that it can provide just a little more power and force. Have y'all ever looked into like servo power modules from Rev or something like that?
I think yeah. I actually, I'm not sure if we got it last year or the year before, but yeah. Well, we use them all the time. Yeah.
All right.
Useful things, they keep the servos in place after autonomous ends, and I think that's the main use for it the first time we used them. But I think it's just like been a non-thought ever since we own them, because they're just, you can't exist without them now.
They're the servo.
It's the servo power module.
Mhm.
So I just got to ask, what big improvements are we making for states? Because or I guess you guys. Sorry.
I was gonna say,
What?
yeah, on the team.
So bad phrasing. What improvements are you guys making? Because at the last meet, it's the robot hadn't been tested in an actual tournament setting. So what have you guys learned from that experience?
All right, so this is like one of our biggest problems. We were rushing a lot, and we literally like less than a minute practice time of teleop, and so we never actually ran the robot. And at the competition, we like saw a lot of problems that should have been fixed before, and we realized one of our things, our odometry was like never fully working correctly. So that's one of the things that we've been trying to fix for the past couple of weeks, making sure that works consistently. And then second was our outtake slide. It's kind of the core parts of the robot, the intake outtake. The entire outtake was really slow and I guess a little janky. And so we switched the positions of our motors. Instead of being on the bottom and it's going through like a series of pulleys, it just requires so much more torque from the robot that whenever we ran our outtake, it would just draw all of our power. It would just make our robot extremely slow. So moving the positions of our motors, this is something we did on our old robot between Limit 3 and 4. We moved the positions of the motors and it like drastically reduced the amount of power that the motors are drawing. So hopefully our robot will be a little faster in that area. And then our intake, we made our intake even lighter because we know powering with servos is a little iffy, but
Yeah.
we're trying to make it as fast as possible so it doesn't weigh down anything or mess up something like that.
All right. So speaking of the intake, I was actually talking to one of your members the night before the league championship, and we heard about something that happened, especially with around the 3D printed parts. I actually did get to see it. There was a fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think
Yeah.
Because
yeah,
I don't
so
think she really described it well.
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
wasn't-
I just want to know, did that actually end up doing anything, or?
so-
Yeah, it kind of like burned our 3D printed a bit, melted it a bit. But
Yeah, I saw it was like melted.
Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't that much structural damage. It still held up pretty well, but I think it was a complete accident. Just
Well, I don't think it'd be a
small amount of
problem.
negligence.
I thought you
on our
guys
part.
gave him like a cigarette or something. There you go.
Turns or something.
Yeah. We were trying to fuse some linear slide materials, especially like the string and stuff like that. We tried to fuse the ends, and it was just too close to a robot. So
And it ended up
Accidents.
lighting on fire.
yeah, the 3D prints, but it wasn't too bad. So we know not to do that anymore.
It didn't look like it burned through any like electrical parts. It looks like just the
No.
plastic melted.
Yeah, it was just.
But I've just never heard of a robot, igniting before. That's just a new thing to me, man.
yeah. Well, now you've seen it.
I guess I have.
yeah.
So I'm just curious. Do you guys end up watching the Gulf Coast league meet
Oh yeah,
last time?
yeah. It was the finals were crazy, and so were the semifinals. I felt like I didn't know that so many teams would just put a 5 cycle on a low goal. Like, what was your opinion on like teams just doing a 5 cycle on that? Like, would that be something you might be interested in doing? So you're not like
Getting the 5 second on the low goal?
During auto,
Yeah, during auto, there's
Yeah.
like
it's a lot faster.
Yeah.
It can be a lot faster. My opinion, though, is I think the reason a lot of teams did that is if you saw Java the Huts, I think those were the Java the Huts and Nerdvana were the real like those were the ones you wanted to compete with. Those are the,
That's the rest.
Yeah.
even like at states, I guarantee you, even if they made no improvement from where they are now, they would easily be some of the best teams there, no doubt. So I think that when you have like a big robot like Java the Huts has, where they're very difficult to move, and we saw that a few times in the finals. You saw Gears of Fire like run into them, and Gears of Fire just wasn't able to score. Java the Huts just didn't move. They have a fat robot; it cannot be moved. So what ended up happening was teams probably just said, "Hey, I'm tired of trying to compete with this enormous monster of a robot to score on this high junction. Let's just go for the low junction because at least we can get it claimed. It's going to go towards our circuit. We don't have to worry about it later. And best of all, we don't have to try and push this absolute beast of a robot. I think that's my take on it. I don't know though. I couldn't tell you if that's actually what they were thinking. That's my guess.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the things that we were looking for our autonomous, because at League Champs and even before, our robot just runs into other robots, and we have a pretty heavy robot, but we want to avoid that as much as possible. So like some other autonomous paths we're looking at is trying to cycle on the middle goal or like the complete like other high goal. It's like in front of the substation, I think.
I think it might be like a lot of mind games, and I don't want to say that because that's going to sound like really toxic, but like I think it might just turn out to be mind games. Like if you go to that junction, you're going to run into a robot, and our robot's going to eat you. It's like.
Well, that happened, I believe, against you guys when we played against each other.
Really?
Our robots hit each other. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
League
their
won.
robot like collapsed or something like that. You guys
Yeah.
were unable to play. A cone got stuck or something.
Oh yeah, and League Me won. Our autonomous ran into each other because we went for the same high goal, and
Yeah.
it like reset our slide position, and we couldn't go down all the way, so we just couldn't score.
I don't think it really screwed up ours, but we weren't able to score any more cones.
I don't know.
So that's
I don't
another
remember
thing.
that.
Like, yeah, sure, it could be, will our robot beat yours, or could it be, will both of our robots break?
Yeah,
Like it is a lot of mind games, I believe.
Yeah, so I think it's going to come down to who is really going to be more determined to get that high junction, and who's going to really think that they're going to be able to do it. Because I can tell you right now, our robot is smaller than usual and less protected. Like last year, we had an enormous robot.
It
Like
was the full
17.9 by 17.9.
Oh,
yeah,
by
it
17.9.
was like if you watch the the streams from last year at the League Champs, blocking was a thing there, and people tried to block us from getting out of the warehouse. Yeah, I mean, like they didn't do anything; they just ended up like getting pushed away. We were enormous. Yeah, we
With the
could-
biggest wheels, I think.
It was a combination of the wheels, and we just had so much mass. Our robot was enormous. So, I mean, trying to like run into us and like block us, it didn't work. We can push you. This year, we don't have that capability. We don't have the amount of mass that we had last year. So I think that it would be in our best interest, at least, to try and switch up some autonomous paths and score on some different junctions just so we don't hit them.
Yeah, like create multiple options.
Yeah, because I think as it stands, if we do try to compete with that and we do try to like get in their heads like, oh, you're gonna get destroyed, our lift is gonna die.
The other thing is, even if we had the same mass as last year, a lot of our mass comes from our lift. Not a lot, but a decent bit of it. So when we're fully extended, our center of mass is a lot higher. So if you were to hit us, we would easily.
There's a pretty good chance we
yeah.
would turtle ourselves.
And that happened with some of the robots in our league, where we would notice.
Our league, like versus their league.
I don't know. I'm trying to. Whatever.
Yeah, no.
Where there were robots that had a lot of their mass in their arm, and whenever they would drive, they would literally tilt forward because their arm was so high, and that's another thing with if you're doing that during autonomous and a robot just completely runs into you, there's a really high chance that you just fall over. So
speaking of which,
sorry,
go ahead, man.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say I think it's gonna be like a lot more valuable for like especially states when you can tell other teams that you have a lot more autonomous paths versus just having one autonomous that can score high, like a really fast high goal.
Yeah, because more chance of compatibility.
Yeah. I think that versatility is going to be huge. I mean, if you watch the other league meets, nobody's cycling. I think that's just a Space Coast League thing, honestly. I think we're just built diff.
I've seen YouTube videos of a lot of high scoring matches where it's just cycling. I've also seen it where there's claim. Yeah, I've seen plenty of high score videos where they're, but it's like half and half.
To it.
Yeah,
you gotta get like
a lot of robots. Yeah, a lot of robots just go for ownership points. They go around the field. There's no cycling. It's just we're going to claim as many as possible, and we're going to get a circuit. That has not been the strategy at all in our league.
In our league, huh? As if we were in a different league.
Well, our league includes them.
Yeah,
you were making fun of me for saying that, so not making fun of you for saying that.
Okay. Fair point. But yeah, no, I think in our league, it's not a thing to just go around and claim. I think we have to really switch that up, and we need to start doing more driver practice, where we're not just cycling. I think we need to actually go around and start claiming, because if we don't, I think we're going to fall behind, and especially in a elims match, that could be the difference between winning and losing, and just letting the other alliance get their circuit.
Yeah.
Talking about driver practice, how do you guys prepare before like a competition?
Well, we haven't done I think any scrimmages this year with any other teams. So what we tend to do is just literally drive on the field. Recently, I had brought up the idea where it's a good idea to just drive around the field in general, like not trying to score anything, just to get more confidence of physically driving around the field, going through those without hitting anything, which I believe is going to be really valuable, especially when you're trying to claim all the different junctions at high speeds. Instead of slowly turning through, you can easily weave in and out of everything to easily pop them on. And that's instead of for the past couple of meets, all we've been doing is just practice cycling and then the occasional claiming. But we've been switching it up every now and then recently.
Okay.
And recently we've been starting to practice with more specific situations, like scoring right at the end of the match, or going from cycling into start, going into different poles.
Transitioning, basically.
Yeah, transitioning into different areas.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of practicing the day before, we don't.
That's just that is pure.
Yeah, the practice is
Yeah.
we run our autonomous a lot, and we make sure that's working. I don't know. Do you guys do any more than autonomous the night before, or you guys dedicate a lot of time to practice?
So,
Most.
yeah. So.
You-
Okay. But yeah, so I think our main thing is that what we try and target is try to have the week before just for driver practice, which is almost never the case. It becomes just our programmers trying to work on the auto and trying to fix it because this one part came off or this thing came loose. So our main strategy is that we try and get at least a day or two of driver practice in, because each time we have a league meet, we change something with the controllers and in teleop, and if our drivers don't know what that is, it can really impair our ability to grab as many cones and score. And then also sort of like going back to what you're saying about branching out and like cycling, I would say like one of the big things that I saw in our finals match too, that almost jeopardized our match, was like we cycled so much, but we didn't have enough time to pick up our team's shipping element or just like our element and just score it onto the junction, and Gears of Other Dimensions just came and took that over. So I think like going especially into states and going further on, it would be like a smarter idea to start like sort of looking at the time and start thinking of scoring the more high value things such as that element and like more for ownership.
I mean, yeah, it's just difficult to start doing that because I mean, we've been like just practicing cycling a lot. That's been the big thing because I think once you get to states, the level of competition obviously goes up, and so you're gonna you're gonna be paired with teams that are much faster than you, much better than you, and so I think typically you want the faster robot to be the one cycling. At least that's what we were doing in our league. The faster robot is usually going to be cycling, and the one that isn't as fast is going to be the one claiming junctions. So I think that it's just a good idea to start doing that, especially because you see teams like, again, I'm going to say Java the Hutt and Nerdvana. They're scaring the crap out of me right now, man. Like 11 cone autonomous. It's just ridiculous. I don't know how they did that. But I think that's really what we need to be practicing instead of cycling, because I think cycling is going to be hardly used at states, or at least not as used.
Yeah.
Yeah. Moving a bit away from robot really quickly, how do you guys think new teams could like help set up their pit during states? Because honestly, it's a pretty big part at states.
How do we pick teams for?
No,
So like
how do you think that they should help set up their pits?
Their pit.
so like
Their
Like how
pit
we
area?
can help them or how they can help other people.
I think
Like tips basically, like what yeah.
tips. Well, first of all, bring a lot of extra parts and tools. You always want
One
to.
second, I need to plug my laptop.
You always want to have, stuff that happens in case your robot breaks or you need something that needs to be fixed. You could always have extra parts and tools to fix that. So.
How do you guys go around to like designing your pit area, like yours specifically?
We have people.
We
Delegate tasks.
that's still in progress right now. I think that because we made it to the World Championship last year, we definitely wanted to put more emphasis on having like a bigger brand, because I think that like the bigger brand you give yourself, the more likely you are to be picked as an alliance partner. I think that's like there's a lot of politics that go on in that sort of sense. Like if you are one of the top teams, you are going to get approached by a lot of other teams, saying, "Hey, can you pick me? Hey, can you pick me? Hey, can you pick me?" So I think having a bigger name for yourself and being more well known, that just increases your odds. So I think that as we kept progressing into the World Championship, if we wanted to be picked, we needed to make a bigger brand for ourselves, and that included having a larger, more impressive pit. That didn't actually happen. The pits there were amazing and made ours look like absolute garbage. But we tried. So this year we're definitely gonna have a bigger emphasis on having a nicer pit.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
and like sort of like a question I wanted to ask is, like, I've seen especially this year with your robot, you're probably the only team to have like that unique intake and outtake with the rubber bands and like with the disc. Why did you guys choose that design over like a simple claw or just like using 2 intake wheels?
Anybody?
Didn't you do the thing for the? Or no, that was Audrey.
Yeah.
Anyways, one of the biggest reasons was the versatility of it, because when you're trying to grab a cone with like the claw itself, it has to be specifically like in that specific part to do this. Versus with the grippers, you could be here, 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 here. You can be anywhere, and it
It's
would
not great.
still roll.
It's
it
not
up.
great visual, but
I could grab a cone if.
Nah, the better way to describe it is we have a lot of tolerance. The room for error is huge, and on top of that, there was a clip. So when we were researching lift designs, right? Because there's a big part of it. We need to see how can we reach up high. One of the ones that we were looking at was the 4-bar, the thing we're using now, and we wanted to know how does it work? What other teams have used it? How does it look? So we looked that up, and there was a team from Vex, and apparently this competition is very similar to a Vex competition. I don't remember what it was. It was, but the same idea of picking up cones, putting them up high, and they had a lift and collector very similar to ours. And so we said, hey, let's look up the World Championship for this, because the World Championship would probably have the best robots. And wouldn't you know it, all 4 robots looked like almost identical, and all of them were using that collector and that lift.
So for first-year teams, and especially teams that are going for the first time to states, do you think it would be a good idea to especially get ideas from Vex or from other robots that have had similar designs or easy to build designs?
Not even similar designs.
I think, yeah. Obviously, if you're an early team or it's your first time going to states, you obviously want to get the most out of it. So you want to do all your research, see what other teams are doing, and then not only could you implement that into the couple games you have at states, if you make it to Worlds, you could use all that data that you got from those games at states to improve your robot over the course of the time you have to go to Worlds. And not only that, but if you were to for next year's, you could also look at drivetrains or things that are generally stay the same throughout the years, and look at how other teams do that and implement that into your robot.
Yeah, I definitely think that, and like I said, it doesn't even have to be a similar design. The idea for a camera to assist with scoring was discovered by a world record video that I just happened to stumble across. The robot didn't even look like ours. They were using linear slides and a claw, and so it was a very standard-ish robot design. And it looked nothing like ours. And I took that idea and said, hey, this is a good idea. We should implement that. So I think that for first-year teams, just go online, look up, FTC Power Play not World Championship, World Record, or like anything like that. You'll find some of the best designs, and you'll find some of the best strategies. I think that doing your homework is a huge deal in this. You definitely need to put in the time to research it, because if you don't, then you're very limited to the ideas that you and your team can generate. Which, don't get me wrong, I'm sure that they're extremely smart people, but when you have access to the entire internet, why limit yourself to the people around you? Go and expand your ideas.
I think, yeah, like a really big thing was our team did our research this season when it came to switching the type of slides we use from Viper to Masumi. And I think Anoop could really talk about this. Was one of the biggest thing was how light Masumi slides are compared to Viper slides, which would make our robots so much faster. And I would say doing your research and trying to see what's out there already can really help a team determine what path they might want to take, especially with their robot and their strategy.
So, in terms of like researching and discussing and like all that, how does that happen for you guys? Do you guys have people who are, solely researching and, discussing, or is it a lot of the entire team has to go out there and research and discuss? Like, what's the process of coming up with ideas?
So usually we'll have a lot of people on our team. It's not like a specified group of people or whoever's just interested. We'll just look something up, research, maybe see some new technologies, and then we also have mentors from FTC alumni and other professionals who will like come to our patio and maybe talk to us about some new technologies. That's actually like one of the places where we heard about some other stuff like Masumi slides and things like that. So about implementing new things, we don't really have a dedicated research team or anything like that. But if anyone finds something and is interested in doing it, we'll definitely have an input on the robot.
So what do discussions look like? Do you guys have like a group chat or is it all in person? You guys don't do anything outside of meetings?
It's a bit of both actually. Like right before the season starts, we all sit together, watch the launch together, and then for like an hour later, we just like sit and just talk. And then like if someone has a random like idea, just throw it in our group chat and like we just discuss from there.
All right.
And then yeah, like sort of throughout the season, not just at in-person meetings. We sometimes, if someone has an idea from something they've seen, they just put in a Google Meet, and sometimes our builders like Anoop and Navneet will join the call, talk to them about what they are thinking about, what design process that they have to approach this, and it's not just limited to like our design and our planning for this doesn't just it isn't limited to just the meeting, like if you just have like a random thought at like midnight and you put in the group chat, I'm pretty sure one of these people will just look at it and talk to you about it. So that's something that our team does. Is it's not just that we're limited to having ideas that are like we don't just talk about ideas in our meetings, but we are also like, able to talk to it like in our group chat and on Google Meet links.
So robotics happens outside of the meetings.
Yeah.
It should. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And usually for like bigger design changes, it's not really up to the builders to like. We usually take the input of everyone else on the team, even if they're not solely focused on building, and we usually have a discussion about that sort of stuff.
Like for example, before we redid our robot, pretty much everyone like we asked everyone like, what do you think about this? Should we add this to our robot or should we not add this? And everyone just like got together, just sat in a circle and like discussed it.
All right. So I think that going back to like first year teams and people who are just going to states, I think that's something that definitely they need to be looking at because I was helping. I won't say helping. I was talking to a team. It was Rust and Combustion. I was talking to them, and they only actually meet once a week, I think. Which I mean, if that's all you have time for, that's all you have time for. It's not a big deal. But I think for first year teams who are really dedicated and who really want to, push as much as possible to get to states, that's something that you need to be able to keep in mind that if you really want to advance, in the competitions, you can't just meet for a couple hours every week. You have to be constantly doing it, even outside of the meetings, because the teams who are really, really good, they come to meetings with everything prepared. All they have to do is test it, fine tune it, and then it's all ready.
I actually had a question about your sort of not like sort of like your design process throughout the season. I understand compared to us and other teams that sometimes since you guys sort of keep the same design, you don't change as much. Uh, have there been instances where you have like a design sitting on the side that you want to try instead, and you're like, okay, there's 2 weeks before the league championship, and we can do this? Do you guys implement that, or do you guys put it off because you might not have enough time to do it?
Normally what we try to do is we try to make a part like completely separate, and then once we have that working, then we put it onto our robot. Like last year when we added like the turret onto like our collection arm, we made that like completely separately from a robot just so that we could make sure that like if it didn't work, we wouldn't have like a completely broken robot that wouldn't work at all. So then after that worked, we put it onto our robot, and then it worked fine in the competition.
Yeah. Also, whenever we have like a new idea or something we really want to add, we tend to not do it before tournaments or meets or anything like that for the sole reason that if something goes wrong during a meet, it could like make our stats bad. It could obviously make us look worse than we actually are. So what we tend to do is when we make something new, we want to do it after a tournament or a meet or something like that. So we have a large amount of time to actually implement it and add it.
Yeah. So sort of going off of that, have there been any instances where that has happened recently or in past seasons?
We had the one time where we wanted to add the squishy
Oh yeah.
intakes.
We still have that sitting on a table, actually.
Well, they're all broken, but
Oh, it's not broken.
there was
yeah, it's broken.
What?
yeah, both of them are busted
Are
because
they?
we don't use it.
Yeah.
But our intakes, they have a metal beam going through, with the 2 discs and then the bands on the outside. We had an idea where what we wanted to do was put a spring in the middle and replace the beam with like a 3D printed tube with a spring, so
Yeah.
you could compress them. So if you were to run into a wall, it would compress instead of like damaging it. And we tried that after a tournament. I believe it was not after. It may have been before.
We
the
didn't
first
even.
tournament.
Well, we didn't even like try it because
We noticed. Well,
It just wasn't working.
we realized that like we did it where we had enough time to add it if we wanted, but after we tried it, we didn't add it. But after we looked at it, we saw it really didn't work. It wasn't that effective, and it would have been too much like time wasted to put them on for the large risk for a small reward.
yeah,
That's really what it was.
I think more of what it was the design at that point wasn't super good. So you have to remember when we put surgical tubing on there, it's applying tension to those discs, so it is pulling both of them down. And when you have a spring in there, it can compress the surgical tubing can actually compress the spring. So you need a very rigid spring, but we didn't have that, especially when you need a spring with a very small diameters.
Yeah, it was
like
it's like tiny.
really tiny. That's just difficult to get, especially if you want it to be very rigid and not be compressed super easily. So we actually did get a prototype of a collector with 4 slots for springs, so that way we had more spring force.
Should I bring that?
No, it's fine. To counteract the tension from the surgical tubing, but unfortunately, the distance between, because it's like 2 parts, you have to like put them together, and the distance between the parts when you put them on was like basically nothing. So like there was a lot of friction rubbing between the 2 parts, and it just at that point it wouldn't have worked, and we realized we put way too much time and effort into that idea for it to just not work. We might use that for the state competition. We don't know at this point. It's not a main goal though.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times that happens where like you have an idea and it just does not work out. Like at least in our team, it happens so many times where we like have something in mind, and the issue is that we don't know when to stop. So is there like a procedure, or like a mutual thought process you guys have? Like after this point, if it doesn't work, we're stopping it, or do you guys just like keep pushing the deadline, kind of like us?
We kind of just realize it's a waste of time. There's not like a set
Yeah.
deadline. Like if this doesn't work in an hour, we're done. We kind of just realize like, hey, we've been doing this for 2 hours, multiple days. We could have been using this time to optimize autonomous, to make our teleop controls better, or work on something else.
Yeah, it's a lot of just realizing, hey, we have to, because this year was weird. I mean, we had 2 weeks between every competition, which
Yeah.
wasn't great. That part was not very fun. I thought that they should have at least given us a month, because there wasn't a lot of change between the robots every competition, which I didn't like. I like seeing what people can come up with, and that's why you saw very small changes to every robot instead of huge changes. And it just wasn't that fun. But I think that restrained us from making the big changes that we wanted to. Because I think if we were able to put more time into these ideas, they would be implemented. But we just didn't have the time.
Yeah, I know, like, especially for our team, the 2 weeks between each meet was very, very, like, restricting. It was, even if we wanted to try and implement a change, it would be really hard, because in, like, the previous meet, there may have been something wrong with our autonomous or something wrong with our teleop. So that 1 week before we started talking about driver practice would just be our programmers trying to fix the programming so that we're all set for the next meet. We're sort of reaching the end, but one of the questions I wanted to ask was, what is like the biggest tip you would give new teams going to the state competition about their robot?
Got this. So I think that the biggest tip for a new team with their robot, honestly, I think that it's a lot more than just your robot. I think that for new teams, you definitely you need to find a passion for this. And if you're not working super hard and this is not something that you're constantly trying to think about and improve, then your robot might fall short. And so I think the biggest tip for your robot is make sure you are, first of all, doing maintenance. We neglected to do that. So if you remember the fifth,
The fifth.
I think it was the fifth, where everybody's robot was just falling apart. So there were 4 things wrong. Our worm gear was given out, and like we could
Literally
see,
broke.
yeah, we could see like the brass shards all in like the
Everywhere.
yeah, they were everywhere. So like our gear was actually getting like completely messed up. The belts that we used to control our lift messed up. We found a screw in a belt. I don't even know how that happened.
I don't even know how it like kept going.
I don't even, dude.
It didn't. It broke
That's
multiple times.
And on top of that, we're pretty sure that electrical discharge had something to do with it. So we had to
The electrical things at the bottom to like
Yeah.
dissipate
Well,
the energy.
Well, I mean, it wasn't just the ground. I think it was just
the cold day or whatever. The cold.
Yeah, it was just dry, and so we couldn't dissipate energy super easily, and so it was a whole mess. But maintenance, do maintenance. Dedicate at least 1 day between every single meet to do maintenance. I think that if you're not doing that, you're really just your robot's gonna fall apart, and it's gonna die.
And another tip that I would say is you really need to put a lot of time into it. It's not like he had said earlier. It's not like a one day per week thing. Like you should be thinking about it outside of just that. Like even if it's like a 2-3 hour meet per day or meet per like one meet per week, where you just like all stick together for like 3 hours. Like that you could have enough time to build a robot, but like you should be thinking about this outside of just that meet, that practice that you guys have. And you should be putting a little like time and effort into the robot. It's not like a one and done thing. It's this constant time, effort, maintenance. It's a lot that goes into it.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I think it's the biggest thing. If you're not putting in the right amount of work and care into your robot, because you really do have to care about your robot. If you're not giving it the proper care that it needs, it is not going to perform as well as you hope, and which is just unfortunate. I think that this is a really fun thing that people can be doing, and if people end up not, caring for the robot and working on it as hard as they can, it's their experience isn't going to reflect how this could actually turn out, which we all know it's a very fun experience. I think we all agree it's amazing. We love it.
Go first.
Yeah, go first.
Yeah, I totally agree with those tips there. I think they're great, especially being on hardware. I could especially resonate with like the maintaining your robot, because I know for sure that every single league meet, at least 2 or 1 of the things that goes wrong with the robot is because some screws like not screwed in, or some Odo pod is flipped around like in league champs or something.
Yeah. Our robot was messing up all day, but that was a human error. It was like,
Yeah.
guys, we vouched for you. We said they were fine. The first time you put your robot on the field.
It just went away. Yeah. Make sure, just gotta make sure that completely inspect your robot and make sure it's 100% before you run it.
Yeah, so something that we started doing like during league champs was a checklist of like what to check right before a match when the person is putting it down. Like for example, the Odo pods. So Mohil started checking the Odo pods, the preset slides, the intake slides, because during our practice match, like before the competition, the slide was a bit out, and you ran the program, and it completely messed up the auto. So like, there's different things that you should always like double check before every match.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. Setting up your robot is just really important. I mean, if you see me out there checking to make sure the robot is lined up, I'm like lying down on lying down on the floor, just like
rulers.
making sure I can it's the
And you
completely.
still want
You got a ruler.
I still want a second opinion. I mean, but like it's important, if that thing's not lined up, exactly right, it's not going to work very well. And there's actually a big problem we had. We actually moved where the robot should start during autonomous, because we lined it up in the middle of the tile, which
I
isn't
believe
very accurate.
I believe they have the things that go out on either side.
Yeah.
Or is that
Yeah.
so
they have tools.
They have tools.
We should probably do that.
We
but-
just eyeballed it. It was like,
Like,
that's
it
the
looks like
middle.
about in the middle.
Yeah, so
So every single run would have to. We would basically change it a little bit, but that's because of human error. We would put it off to the left a little bit.
yeah,
So we got to change it to the left.
yeah. So I think one of our mentors actually did the calculations for that. He did some of the math, and he figured out that hey, every degree that robot is turned from where it's supposed to be, like it's supposed to be 0 degrees, but every degree that it's off, that's an entire inch that we miss our mark by, and so we were kind of messing up a lot because of that. So I definitely recommend, setting up your robot right. Make sure it's correct. Consistency is key, especially in autonomous. What was the question again?
I don't know.
Nah, I think y'all hit the mark. We were just talking about.
Okay,
we knew that.
Yeah,
Honestly.
we knew.
So we have like about 5 minutes left, and I wanted to really ask, what is your team most excited about for the state competition?
Going back to the world champion.
That's probably a little loud. That's a little loud. Well, obviously, like what he said, winning it all would be an amazing experience. But it's also just the experience overall. Like, just going to states is really, really fun in general. You get you get to see a lot of amazing teams, even very new teams that just got first time. It's obviously fun to see how they go about it. But like, just the experience overall is what I would say.
And like the differences between like all the different leagues, like I guess how we were talking about like the cycling versus like claiming, and how like all the differences between, just because we're in different areas and developed like kind of separately.
Yeah, no. The difference between league champs and states, like at least last year was my first time going to states, so it was like a complete difference. And like we didn't have anything set up. Like we walk in and we see like the biggest like demo set up. Like everybody has their stuff together, and we just had our table and our robot. So
It's super professional.
Yeah.
It's really cool. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the new teams, you can always spot them. They're the ones with like like the brown tent and like the table that they give you for free at the convention center. Like you can always tell who they are, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, y'all are still a super dominant force, and because you guys decided to block Crazy Cat Ladies, we made it to the World Championship.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's really nice of you guys. So homey of you. But you guys were still really dominant. So I think that like for a rookie team, like what was your first year? Was it Skystone?
Yeah, it was Skystone. I believe.
It was Skystone.
Yeah. They were pretty dominant during Skystone.
Yeah, I mean,
Their first year, they were really
good. Like the first year you guys were there, you guys hit the floor and just took off, man. It was crazy.
It was impressive. Very impressive.
And then the last year it was because we had like the gap year where everything was online, and you guys just kind of like it was crazy. I didn't even know.
Yeah, like normally you see a team that's like pretty high in the numbers, and you're like, oh, they can't do much.
Yeah.
And then you guys show up and
just like
sweep the floor with everyone. You just dominant.
One of the only 16,000 teams that like you read the number and you're like, oh no,
it's them.
Oh no,
no, it's them.
Hey, hopefully we get some matches at states. Every time it's like we're against each other.
I know.
You already know we're gonna go
like,
against each other. We're gonna be in the opposite division, meet in the finals, play against each other. This is how it goes.
Yeah, that's our luck.
I think the first time that we played together was in like the elimination matches, which was crazy.
Yeah, it was.
And
We
we
had
had
the
to
real-
match each other, like every competition.
We had to force our way through.
We literally had to win every single match just to play a single game with you guys.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
just
Which
two
is great.
matches.
We had to put it into our own hands to play a game with you guys.
Yeah, I don't understand what it's randomized. There's 30 teams in our league. There were 6 meets, 6 matches a meet. One of them had 5. Who cares?
Yeah,
That's 35 matches. So that means we duplicated like teams.
The odds of us playing with each other is 1 in 30.
30.
times 6 though.
No, 1 out of 30.
No, again, every game, every turn,
Oh.
every single.
Oh, yeah,
me
yeah.
playing against you
The
guys.
point is,
1 out of
we
30
should have got together.
times 6.
Yeah, the point is, it was dumb that we didn't go, that we weren't
Yeah.
like alliance partners at some point without us having to go, we want you on our alliance.
Yeah.
Like that was, hopefully we actually get paired up together, because I think that
Yeah.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, that'd be
when your
fun.
robot is working,
Hey, come on.
we can actually like do really well together.
Well, we did well when they're
We,
robots.
I
Yeah,
mean, we did well, but you know,
Great, what do you mean?
I would like to see, you know, some amazing matches. You know, I'd like to see some big boy numbers. You know, get into that 200 zone. You know, we only have one match
We
like
got
that.
there, but that was
Yeah.
Actually, no, we didn't even get there. It was
No, that was
196
like
without
196,
penalties.
yeah.
So no, we didn't even get there.
I think like a big thing about this or like for states is I feel like there's not going to be as many teams that are going to be in the 200s because of how many teams are going to be cycling and how many teams are going to be just going for like ownership. Like I feel like the only reason why there's such high scores in the Gulf Coast was that they're just really dominant teams against teams that weren't able to cycle as fast or go for ownership that fast. But at the state competition, I would say like just the elimination matches of divisions are probably going to be in like max like 180s, 190s.
I mean, we'll see, because I think that you're definitely underestimating some of these teams, man. Java the Hutt and Nerdvana started where most matches ended. You know, like they
started with like
They
100
was-
or something.
156.
And that was some of the highest scores in our league.
Like you got that score in leagues, you were like popping off. That was amazing. But they start there, dude. So I think that definitely we're going to be seeing very high scoring matches.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so we have reached sort of the end of the live stream. Before we end off, do you guys have any more questions for us, or?
I don't think so, man.
No, really.
Yeah.
It's been fun talking with you guys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks for having us.
Yeah.
It's been awesome.
Well,
Thank
thank you
you.
for coming out, and we hope that you guys have a very good time, and see you guys back at States.
Yeah. Can't wait to see you at States.
Can't wait to
Can't wait to see you guys either. All right.